You know that feeling when you hold a piece of vintage technology? Like, think of an old, bulky flip phone from the early 2000s.
Oh, yeah. The ones with the tiny pixelated screens.
Exactly. The plastic keypad, the little antenna. You look at it and you realize it was just a necessary kind of awkward stepping stone.
Right, a prototype.
Yeah, a rough draft required to eventually get to the sleek smartphones we all carry in our pockets today. And, well, I sometimes wonder if humanity, as we are right now, is basically that flip phone.
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
Right. Like, what if we aren't the final form of our evolution, but just this awkward transitional phase? Like, we're just raw material for something else entirely.
It really forces a massive shift in perspective. We naturally operate under this assumption that we are the absolute pinnacle of the evolutionary ladder.
We split the atom, we build cities, so we must be the finished product, right?
Exactly. We write our philosophies and assume we've peaked. But if you look at the grand timeline of the universe, the idea that our current physical and mental state is just the raw material for something completely unrecognizable. I mean, it isn't just plausible, it's highly likely.
And that is exactly the premise of today's deep dive. We're unpacking a really condensed, wildly provocative 2021 text by an author named Zhu Feng.
And he makes a very bold claim.
He really does. He argues that we are essentially evolutionary flip phones. And he provides a literal roadmap for how to upgrade into what he calls a super celestial being.
Which sounds very sci-fi at first glance.
Yeah, the text is simply titled How to Transform from Human to Super Celestial Being. And to understand this framework, Shifeng doesn't start with abstract philosophy or religious dogma.
No, he grounds it in something entirely physical.
He goes straight to biology. Specifically, nature's most dramatic makeover, which is the caterpillar turning into a butterfly.
It's a metaphor we were all introduced to in childhood, right? Which honestly makes it really easy to just gloss over.
Oh, totally. We've all seen the picture books.
Right. But the author focuses on a biological reality of that chrysalis phase that forces us to reevaluate what transformation actually requires.
Because it's not what we think it is.
Exactly.
Ah.
The text points out that if you were to open a chrysalis halfway through the process, you don't find a caterpillar slowly sprouting wings.
Right. It's not just a mutation. You don't see a caterpillar hitting the gym and growing new parts.
No, not at all.
The author writes about opening a chrysalis and finding nothing inside but white paste, just uniform liquid mush.
And the text draws this really sharp contrast between that white paste and, say, a bird's egg.
Because an egg is organized.
Right. An egg has a visible structure. There's a distinct white and a distinct yolk, and each has a specific biological role waiting to develop into a chick.
Right.
But the chrysalis has none of that organization.
Yeah.
The caterpillar has completely dissolved into a structureless liquid.
Wait, so it's like taking a fully built Lego house, melting it completely down into a puddle of liquid plastic, and then using that raw puddle to build a spaceship.
That is the perfect analogy, actually.
It's a total teardown. The caterpillar literally ceases to exist in any recognizable structural form before the butterfly can be built.
And the terrifying part of melting down those Legos, as you put it, is that the caterpillar has to completely surrender its current physical reality to become that paste.
It has to give up everything it knows.
Yes. The author is using this really graphic biological detail to make a severe point about our own potential metamorphosis.
Right, because Yufeng states explicitly, I have the quote here, the non-material structure of life needs to undergo a complete change.
Meaning, becoming a super celestial being isn't framed as some weekend self-improvement project.
So it's not about downloading a meditation app or, reading a few philosophy books and gradually becoming human 2.0.
Not at all. I mean, a software patch doesn't turn a flip phone into a smartphone. You need entirely new hardware. The white paste phase represents the absolute breakdown of existing structures, ingrained habits, and honestly, the fundamental ego.
Wow.
You cannot hold on to the familiar form of the caterpillar if you want the aerodynamics of the butterfly.
You literally can't have both.
No. To access the new form, you have to be willing to lose your current shape entirely, which goes against, well, every human survival instinct we possess.
Okay, so if the chrysalis represents this absolute meltdown of the Lego house, what is the spaceship we are supposedly building?
This is where the text expands its scope significantly.
Because Wu Feng doesn't just say a butterfly is an insect that can fly. He
Yeah,
frames this biological change as tangible evidence of something much bigger, like something dimensional.
right. The text asserts that a caterpillar crawling on the ground lives in a two-dimensional world, whereas the flying butterfly exists in a four-dimensional world.
Okay, wait, let me just play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Calling a caterpillar two-dimensional feels a little like sloppy science to me. I mean, a caterpillar has mass, right? It has
Right.
volume, it casts a shadow, it lives in 3D space just like we do.
Sure.
Is he just using, buzzwords to make a biological process sound mystical?
It's a fair question, but it's crucial to look past a literal physics interpretation here.
Okay.
You have to examine the perceptual geometry the author is describing.
Yeah.
Think about the sensory reality and the practical lived experience of a caterpillar.
Right, it's day-to-day life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Its entire existence, its entire survival strategy is bound to the surface of a leaf or a branch. Functionally, its world is defined by a flat plane.
It just moves forward, backward, left, right.
Exactly. So to the caterpillar, the z-axis, the vertical space above it, is entirely meaningless.
Right, because it can't interact with it.
It is meaningless, right up until a bird swoops down from that z-axis and ends its life. The caterpillar simply cannot comprehend the space the bird occupies.
Oh, wow. That's a wild thought.
Now, contrast that limitation with the butterfly. Upon emerging from the white paste, it suddenly has access to that z-axis. It can fly.
It can perceive the entire canopy of the forest from above.
Precisely. The boundaries of its world have exponentially expanded. So the leap from 2D to 4D in the text is actually a really profound metaphor for an expansion of awareness.
And Xiefeng explicitly equates humans to caterpillars. The text asks, and I'm quoting again, "Can humans become super celestial beings? Ask a caterpillar, can you become a butterfly?"
We are the crawling insects in this framework.
And the super celestial beings are the butterflies.
Yes.
Which means that right now, you and I and everyone listening are basically just crawling on a leaf, utterly convinced that this leaf is the entire universe.
We really are.
We think our 3D material day-to-day human existence is the absolute limit of reality.
We take it as the absolute truth.
But the text is suggesting that to a super celestial being, our reality looks as flat, limited, and, well, vulnerable as a crawling bug's reality looks to us.
The dimensionality metaphor highlights the sheer incomprehensibility of the destination.
Yeah, we can't even picture it.
Exactly. We cannot currently fathom the reality of supercelestial beings any more than a caterpillar can fathom the principles of aerodynamics.
Because we don't have the hardware for it yet.
Right. It implies unlocking entirely new dimensions of existence that are currently invisible to our sensory apparatus.
Okay, so if we truly aren't the final product and there's an entirely new dimension of perception available, we have to ask what the actual mechanism of changing our form looks like.
The how of it all.
Yeah, like how does the white paste know how to build the wings? The text doesn't attribute this to just random mutation, right?
No, it attributes it to a highly controlled design. The author asserts that this incredible evolution happens because, and this is a key phrase, super celestial beings have set up a program for life's metamorphosis.
A program. So the white paste operates strictly according to a pre-installed latent code,
Yes.
pushing our technology metaphor further. The human body is basically a piece of hardware, like a blank smartphone fresh out of the box.
Right.
But it comes with a whole suite of different operating systems pre-installed on the hard drive. Because Refeng writes that unlike the caterpillar, humans have multiple programs within us.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, he says if we operate according to the program of a horse, we become a horse. If we run the dog or pig program, we become a dog or a pig.
And he goes further than animals, too.
Right, if we boot up the devil program, we become a devil. And of course, sitting right next to those on the hard drive, the hardware also contains the super celestial program.
The contrast between animal biology and human potential here is fascinating.
How so?
Well, the caterpillar turning into a butterfly is entirely deterministic. It only has one program. The white paste must become a butterfly. It has no alternative blueprints to choose from.
Yeah, a caterpillar doesn't have a turn into a beetle program on its hard drive. It just follows the one track.
Exactly. But humans are presented as unique, highly unstable hardware. We are not deterministic. We possess the burden of choice.
We have to pick the OS.
Yes. The text argues that within our very structure, we have the latent potential to profoundly downgrade our existence.
A downgrade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you run the pig program, which we might interpret as yielding entirely to base consumption, greed, and immediate physical gratification,
Hmm.
your consciousness and eventually your form degrades to match that code.
And if you run the devil program,
Then you're leaning into malice, manipulation, and destruction, and you devolve accordingly.
so we are carrying around all these different flash drives in our pockets, and we are both the hardware and the user.
It places a massive burden of responsibility on the individual, doesn't it?
It really does. Evolution isn't just this passive biological process that happens to our species over millions of years while we sit back and watch.
No, it is an active individual daily choice.
You aren't guaranteed an upgrade. You could actively devolve if you aren't paying attention to which operating system you're running on a daily basis.
That is the core tension of the entire text. The presence of the supercelestial program within us guarantees the possibility of profound transformation, but human agency determines the direction of that transformation.
And that brings us to the ultimate practical question for you listening. If my hardware contains all these conflicting programs, how do I consciously select and run the right one?
It's the million-dollar question.
Right. How do I make sure I'm not accidentally booting up the pig or devil program on a random Tuesday morning?
Lifechanyuan concludes the text with a very concise directive.
Okay.
To operate according to the program of supercelestial beings, one must live in alignment with the consciousness of supercelestial beings.
Okay, but practically, what does that actually look like? Because this feels like a massive paradox.
It is a bit of a catch-22.
Yeah. How do I align with the consciousness of a 4D flying butterfly when I am still completely trapped in the heavy, limited body of a 2D crawling caterpillar?
It's a great question.
Let's take a really mundane human scenario. Say I'm stuck in bumper-to-bumper traffic, I'm late for work, someone just cut me off, and I'm stressed about my mortgage.
Very terrestrial problems.
Yeah, these are very 2D terrestrial problems. So how do I apply a 4D super celestial consciousness to a traffic jam? I can't just pretend I have wings and levitate over the cars.
Right, and it is the central philosophical hurdle of this framework. You can't pretend the traffic doesn't exist, but you can change the code you use to process the event.
Okay, unpack that for me.
In that traffic jam, the pig or animal program reacts with immediate terrestrial instinct. Rage, territorial aggression, honking the horn, spiking your cortisol level.
Right, it's a reaction entirely bound by the flat plane of the immediate environment, a purely defensive, survival-based reaction.
Exactly. But if we follow the logic of the text, aligning with the 4D consciousness means accessing a broader vantage point, even if you can't physically fly yet.
Expanding the z-axis of the mind.
Yes. A supercelestial being operating with expanded awareness wouldn't perceive a delayed commute as a survival threat.
They'd see the bigger picture.
Exactly. Alignment in that moment means observing your own animal rage and actively refusing to execute that code.
You choose not to click on the animal program.
Right. It is choosing detachment, patience, or even compassion for the driver who cut you off. It's recognizing that the immediate 3D stressor is incredibly small in the grand scheme of your structural evolution.
So you can't wait for the wings to sprout before you start thinking about the sky.
Beautifully put. Yeah.
You have to start intending, thinking, and acting toward that higher frequency while still completely trapped in the caterpillar body.
Consciousness pulls the physical structure forward. That is the actual mechanism of the transformation.
The mind leads the body.
Always. By repeatedly choosing the higher response, by refusing to run the animal programs day after day, you signal the hardware to boot up the celestial program.
And that's what triggers the meltdown.
Yes. That sustained intention, that conscious alignment, is what eventually triggers the transformative white paste phase. You don't just melt down randomly.
Your consciousness demands a new structure.
Exactly. It demands a structure that can handle a higher frequency, and the old, limited structure collapses to make way for it.
Wow. It is a profound reframing of how we navigate our daily lives. So let's look at the entire roadmap we've uncovered from this dense, provocative text.
It's quite a journey.
It really is. We started with the harsh biological reality of the chrysalis. True metamorphosis is never just an incremental upgrade. It requires a complete dissolution into white paste.
Melting down the familiar Lego house of our current identity.
Right. And from that dissolution emerges the dimensional leap, The transition from a flat, limited existence heavily bound by immediate survival into a state of awareness so expansive it renders our current human reality unrecognizable.
And as we discussed, the mechanism driving this leap isn't just blind chance.
No, our bodies are hardware preloaded with multiple operating systems. We carry the latent code to become beasts, devils, or super celestial beings.
We hold all the cards.
We do. And the way we trigger the ultimate upgrade is by striving to align our daily consciousness, our reactions in traffic, our interactions with our families, our handling of stress with that higher dimensional state, long before we actually have the capacity to fly.
It places the burden of evolution squarely on the micro choices you make every single day.
Which really forces you to constantly evaluate your own internal code. Every thought, every reaction, every habit is a line of code executing one of those latent programs.
It certainly makes you hyper-aware of your own mind.
It really does.
Yeah.
Which brings up a chilling final thought I want to leave you with today. Something we touched on, but I think deserves much deeper reflection.
Oh, Matt.
Well, if transforming from a human into a super celestial being genuinely requires that white pace phase like a complete unrecognizable dissolution of our current structure, what does that actually feel like for a human mind?
That is a very heavy question. Because from the outside, looking at a chrysalis, we see a miracle of nature quietly happening.
Right, it looks peaceful.
But from the inside of that shell, the organism is experiencing the absolute destruction of everything it has ever been.
Exactly. We all say we want to evolve. We all want to grow wings and transcend our limitations. But the biological roadmap says the wings come last.
First comes the liquefaction.
Yeah. Is that melting down process what we currently diagnose as a midlife crisis?
Or a breakdown.
Right. Is it the terrifying experience of profound ego death? Is it those dark nights of the soul where every belief system you've built your life upon suddenly collapses and feels entirely meaningless?
It would be the psychological equivalent of losing your shape entirely.
Just floating in the void.
A period of profound disorientation where you are no longer the caterpillar, but you are not yet the butterfly.
Yeah.
You are just formless potential floating in the dark.
And human instinct is to fight that formlessness at all costs. We panic when our structures fail. We desperately try to rebuild the Lego house exactly as it was.
We want the familiar.
We do. But to become the butterfly, we might first have to be brave enough to sit in the dark and let our current comfortable reality completely melt away. Think about that the next time you feel like your world is falling apart, or you feel entirely lost and without structure. Maybe it isn't a breakdown. Maybe, just maybe, you finally triggered the right program.